Imagine a vibrant discussion between people that includes both openness and critical thought in the pursuit of truth. The Purchasing Truth podcast is an experience, a journey, an exploration of the impact that negative messages in politics and the media have on our families, community, society, and nation. Join your hosts, Bill Stierle and Tom Hazard, to discover new concepts and language strategies that will reveal effective ways of establishing truth. This podcast series will tackle current events, leadership challenges, healthcare confusion, integrity in business, and many other areas that affect us all. Gain clarity and understanding of the various truth perspectives. Welcome to Purchasing Truth.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Purchasing Truth. I'm Tom Hazard with your host, Bill Stierle. And today we're going to talk about truth and the communication apocalypse. That sounds ominous, Bill.
It is ominous. It is ominous. It is ominous because there's certain strategies that language shows up in and causes, Tom, a communication apocalypse. Whether you're in your relationship, whether it's you're in a business, between a customer and a employee, in a business, or in government, which we're currently seeing right now, with all of the different players using these different strategies and techniques in a very unconscious and responsive way. That's the hard part about it. It's really not, this is not predictable. This is, I'm going to this strategy, and then it activates another strategy that shows up.
So when you say it's unconscious, do you think that the people that employ these strategies are not conscious of the consequences that will arise once they go down that strategy? It forces someone to respond in a certain way.
Yes, that's correct. They're not there. They're thinking that they're going to get an advantage by doing it. And it does get a temporary advantage, but it causes a long-term consequence of disconnection, a long-term consequence for truth, a long-term consequence for trust. You said this thing about my team. Therefore, you're my enemy forever.
Wow, I think we probably saw some things play out in politics in the last 24 hours that might apply to this. Are you thinking about that?
I am. Even in the last 24 hours, this violence that showed up. There's some ways to that people need to have some awareness about their language choices and the violence that comes with it. And also, the weird part about it is that if you don't have awareness of it, you'll take the bait and go in the opposite direction, causing it to get worse. And you're not even knowing that you're walking into the violence. And with these different communication apocalypse points of view, they just start stacking on top of each other. It's this point of view, then this point of view, then this point of view, then this point of view. And oh my gosh, it just blows up. And that's what we're experiencing. So
wow. Well, let's get into understanding the makings of a communications apocalypse, and then hopefully we can relate it to some real world examples.
Okay, that'd be great. So the first thing to know about communication apocalypse, and we got into this a little bit last episode, there was this experience of the tension and the violence that shows up with language choices and language sentences that are being spoken. So what I'm going to do is start with the four horsemen of the communication apocalypse and go through them one by one, generally speaking. And then what will happen is that we'll be able to apply it. So Tom, let me introduce you to the four horsemen of a communication apocalypse. The first horseman has to do with the intention or the experience of criticism. Criticism is one of those horsemen that come up, and as soon as a criticism comes in, it's what a person should or shouldn't have done. And that's going to cause a conflict to show up. All right. So this criticism is going to be based on a incorrect fact or a pseudo fact, or as we're currently calling a alternative fact, And the criticism will be, well, yeah, but it's not really a fact. It's a talking point, but it's not really a fact. Okay, it's a point of view, but it's really not a fact. So the criticism will show up, and media is currently engaging in the process of that because they've never seen it so blatant before. All right, so what happens is then they might bring in or experiencing the second horseman, which is called defensiveness. Defensiveness is more a protection on, you didn't do this in order. This is not the right way to follow it. This is not the system we have in place. You're scrambling the eggs, and I don't want scrambled eggs. I just want you to cook an egg and just give it to me. So what they do language-wise is that when you get a disruptor type person in the White House or in a position of leadership, they then start mixing things up, which causes, if it's not talked through, causes this defensive strategy to show up. And then people will tend to overprotect or over-engage in the process of safety or other strategies. The third one that shows up is this one that's called withdraw. Withdraw is when somebody backs away from things and doesn't engage and says, you know what, I'm not just going to meet on that. You know what, I'm not doing it until you do what I want you to do. So what happens is that the withdrawal strategy then forces the other people to either use criticism, the president shouldn't do that, defensiveness, he's not following the rules, or finally the fourth horseman, which is contempt. This is making the American public sick. We're really sick about this. We really don't like that this is taking place. He's really not on our side. He's really not trying to be helpful. He's really not doing this. And yes, he's trying to get his way, but at the expense of actually working within the system that he is playing in, that he has signed up for. So it's one thing to get elected, but what are you getting elected to, and what court are you going on to? What court, do you have any skill in this area? Do you have an awareness about what happened? Is actually how to run this system? This is bigger than anything that you've ever run ever in the past. And your strategies about how to run things from that business empire that you were in the head of, some of those strategies might not work here. And the answer is they don't, because you can see these four horsemen are in play right now. We're going to go deeper into this, but at least you can see the four horsemen right now, and you can ask me a ton of questions about them because you can really see it in play.
All right.
It's interesting, right?
Oh, it's very interesting. I'm excited to talk about it in context, but no, I definitely can see it. And we've talked about some of these, qualities before: criticism, withdrawal, defensiveness, and contempt, but we haven't talked about it in quite this way in terms of protective language strategies.
Yes.
And in some ways, some of them are used, I think, as a weapon too, offensively, aren't they? I mean, criticism sure is.
What a better way to use protection than to be on offense with the sword of criticism. Then all of a sudden, as soon as somebody brings out a bigger sword,
right,
the person might say, this is the end of my presidency.
Yeah.
And he was right, because the bigger sword is the sword of law. That's the bigger sword. So that's a little problematic, because now you've got this big system that you've engaged, this big giant that you woke up. And they're still trying to fight the giant that they woke up, which is called the Mueller report. You woke up the giant, you weren't paying attention, and you were blatant about what you just did. Oh, no, blatant unconscious more. You're unconscious about your team was inept in dealing with the giant that you woke up. And we just documented all the things that you did that crossed the line.
So I think, and of course, by the time this publishes, it's not yesterday, but we saw, I think, probably all four of these play out yesterday, didn't we? In I mean, and I don't know exactly which piece, Bill, you would think relates to each of these four horsemen, but what I saw was the Democrats had an early morning meeting in the basement of the Capitol to discuss whether they're going to go down the road of impeachment.
Right.
And coming out of that meeting, Nancy Pelosi made a statement that the president has clearly engaged or is engaged in a cover-up. That language, I think you could probably call a criticism, was it landed on the president, and boy, did he have a major knee-jerk negative reaction to that, and got defensive, stormed out of a meeting after 3 minutes, which maybe is withdrawal. But then he came out and had a meeting in the Rose Garden that expressed contempt.
Well done, Tom. Well done. You walked right through the thing that I watch on a daily basis. Oh, look at that. Oh, I wonder what's going to show up next. Oh, how about that? Now, the participants, regrettably, don't actually realize that they're just creating another horseman of a communication apocalypse. And truth is going to be the casualty. Mutual respect is the casualty. As soon as you get into this criticism, labeling, which is a form of criticism and contempt, it's like, yeah, you want to label me? Oh, this was constructed by 12 angry Democrats. It's like, really? Okay. Well, I'm going to bring defensiveness and contempt. Let's see what you're going to do with those two. Well, I'm going to bring withdrawal. I'm not playing. I'm taking my toys home.
Yeah, I mean, and is this realistic? I mean, I think this is part of what the public fears, is that if we as a country, and maybe that's the wrong way to put it, I think because it is in control of the Democrats. If the Democrats go down this road of opening an impeachment inquiry, what the president is now saying is, I'm not going to have any meetings and talk about negotiating anything in the way of government until all of this, and of course he labels it as pointless investigations, or I forget the word he used to qualify it, but he denigrated tried to make the investigations seem like they're illegitimate in how he labeled them. But until these investigations are ended, we're not going to negotiate anything and do any business, which is unrealistic and
no, it's not
dangerous. Well, don't we have a budget that's going to run out of money in September again? I mean, at some point they're going to have to.
Yeah, they've got to come back to the table. The realistic piece of this is that they've got to back a little bit and put some of these horsemen down. The scorched earth communication style that the president is engaging in, and now being drug into it because of his language narrative. He is dragging them into the language narrative. And hey, we're just talking about doing business here and mutual respect. And cover up is not a bad label for not showing up for subpoenaed legal point of laws discussion with the leadership that's currently in place. You might not like the leadership, but you got to deal with the leadership.
Yeah, I agree. The stonewalling tactic definitely is what I think they're referring to as a cover-up. Look, if you've got nothing to hide, then put all your cards on the table. We'll have our hearings and we'll be done.
We'll be done.
Yeah.
Sure, bring it on. Yeah, go. There's nothing to hide. See, and that's the thing that they're actually missing, is they've got to come back to, gosh, I think we're just asking for transparency here. Gosh, you know what? I'm just thinking we're hearing this. This is not a got you. We would like a clarity so we can further exonerate the president. It seems like the president would like to be exonerated. We just want to help him in that journey.
Mm-hmm. Now
I'm not doing any of those. I'm not doing any of those.
You're right. That would be very helpful, because what was it? Another thing that the president said in his Rose Garden tirade yesterday was, "Oh, I've been the most transparent of, I think, any president in the history of the country." And
it's like if you are, then your other people aren't doing your other thing. Aren't doing. You would go like transparency is like, well, not if you're blocking things. Right. A blocking thing is a withdrawal strategy. Criticism is, I'm looking for a margin of argument that I can get a certain point of view in that I'm sure it's, and in criticism and withdraw, you don't need to win. You just need to um, draw and gather the need for respect in a tragic and suicidal way, because that's what he's going for: respect and recognition in a tragic and suicidal way. Why is it tragic? Because of the wreckage that it creates. Why is it suicidal? Is because they are taking his names off buildings, his buildings, because people won't go to them. That's actually happening now. So that's problematic because he doesn't even see it that way. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Now, how does, just to look at the flip side for a second,
Sure.
how did it, where did what Nancy Pelosi said fall in this spectrum of the four horsemen when she said, I pray for the president? Do you hear that?
I did. There is the people that on her side will say, listen, we need a little bit more than prayers. He needs to go to jail. And the people that are not on her side will say, don't give me any pity. They'll actually bring contempt to that sentence. But if she would have did compassion and empathy, it would have been a little bit better for her. Regrettably,
Yeah.
She didn't use that.
Yeah.
It might have sounded like, yeah, I can see how the president's feeling angry and he really wants his choices. And one of his choices is to stop the investigation. Regrettably, we feel torn. We can't stop the investigation because really in the pursuit of information, and if we're really going to do our job, or if we're really doing what the American people would like, we kind of would like support so we can actually get closure to this. But it seems like the president would like to drag this out a little bit further.
Much more
much cleaner,
rational language and productive language, I guess, that isn't going to allow him to continue to spiral in his four horsemen, I guess, right?
That's right. You got to get away from the four horsemen and actually bring a adult, compassionate narrative that is more needs-based, is more value-based, and really connects with what the person is doing when they're doing it. Well, the president, again, would like everybody here that there's no collusion and there's no obstruction. Well, I feel doubtful and skeptical about that, because when you prevent people from seeing us and talking, isn't that obstruction? Now, notice it's questioning the person's mind. They go like, oh, yeah, I guess that is obstruction. He's saying no obstructing while he's obstructing.
Yeah.
Oh, there's an incongruency here. There is a protective language strategy in place here. So let's go down a little bit deeper down this rabbit hole and watch what happens, Tom.
Okay.
All right. So I want to create a conflict. I want to escalate things, right?
Okay.
I want to make things worse.
You evil person, you. Yes, let's do that.
I want to do that. And the reason why, as a mediator, I got to actually know how to make things worse so I can know how to make things better.
That's
if
logical.
I'm gonna be in a place where people are screaming, if I'm gonna sit at a city council meeting with 250 screaming people, or in a boardroom, which I've done many of, where people are furious with what has happened and what has taken place with the mutual leadership, I got to know where the violence is coming from. So I'm good at writing this stuff down because I know I've seen the violence everywhere. Okay, so let's look at where criticism violence might look like, okay?
All
right. Here are 3 different tactics that is the tragic form of protection that a criticism mindset will bring. Here it comes. Continuous belittling. Check.
Yeah, boy. Check. And
loser.
Lightweight.
Nobody. Lightweight. Rocket man.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Okay. Tragic recognition at the expense or the omission of others. Look at all of what my administration has done in the short amount of time. I think it's the most that anything in the first 50 days, in the first 100 days, the most it's been ever done ever.
Tragic recognition is a very interesting way to describe exaggeration, isn't it?
That's right. Exaggeration's the label, and they'll say, no, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not.
Exaggeration is a label. It's not just a.
Yeah,
it's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it is.
I was trying to choose my words carefully there.
No, you're good. Dude, this is why it's such a delight to talk to you, because you get to walk into your own thought traps of your own languaging, and you and I have been on the journey for a while here to get a sense of, oh my gosh, if I get caught with the wrong word in the wrong place, I am going to get handcuffed. I am going to lose the sale. I am going to cause conflict inside my kid without me knowing it. It's like, I got to find out what's inside the kid's head before I say the sentence, or otherwise they take it the wrong way.
Yeah, they sure do. Okay. I like that. Tragic recognition at the expense or omission of others. So what makes it tragic? Just the fact that it is a partial truth?
That's right. It's an exclusion of the work and the effort everybody else did to get the person to get the recognition. Tragic recognition. It's such an honor to serve under your presidency. That's tragic recognition. And all they're doing is just feeding this criticism jackal so it doesn't bite them.
Okay.
That's all they're doing. They're feeding this horse so they don't get flamed. All those people in the room, it's such an honor to be here. I can't believe I have the opportunity to. They're just like, the judgmental thing is that they're kissing up to him or kissing whatever.
Yeah.
But really, that's not helpful either. What's helpful is that they're just giving tragic recognition at the expense or the omissions of themselves or others. They're just staying clear of his chaos, so they don't get fired next. That's it.
Wow.
That's all that's happening.
Okay.
So let's take a look at the third bullet here, which is very disturbing. Placing dollars at the cost of human care and consideration. Placing money above human care and consideration. I am going to get this dollar sign at the expense of another human being. I'm not concerned with the human being. I'm concerned with my bottom line. If I can save money and it's going to cost something, to me, I'd rather save the money. And so what happens if 500 people get paralyzed because of that? I just saved money, and there was no rule or regulation, so I get to sell. This is, oh my God, this is a 30-year-old story at least. So I'm crossing my fingers that that this story isn't still real, but it could be. If there's not a rule in a country to have a car that has one of those neck things behind it.
The whiplash protector, which people always think of it as a headrest, but it's not there for you to rest your head on when you're driving. Right.
No, it's to prevent you from having neck injury.
Right.
Right. So it's a safety device. If I can get away with selling a car to a foreign country because they don't have a rule for it and save hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's going to cause 500 neck injuries, I'll sell it. I won't put the car rest in. I won't put the safety device in. Right. You see how tragic that is.
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
That is placing cost ahead of human care and consideration.
Well, I'll give you a more recent example. I don't know if you've seen in the media in the last couple of months here in 2019, there have been a couple of recalls from the Consumer Product Safety Commission for some of these infant bouncy seats or little rocking seats. Not something that's to replace a crib, but something you'd set them in while you're, maybe preparing some food, or maybe you place them in there to bounce and be happy while you're getting a moment to eat. And there have been a tragic number of infants that have died in these seats because they're not stable. And there's been a lot of criticism of the CPSC, which is a government agency that did not act fast enough to recall these devices because of business and political pressure at a corporate level.
That's correct.
And it only got to the point when something like 30 or more infants died that the calls for action got loud enough that the government finally took action.
So difficult. And we're noticing companies willing to pay the fine because the fine is less than making it right. It's less. So I'd rather pay the fine for pollution rather than clean it up myself, because if I clean it up myself while it's happening, then I have to, then I have to pay more. But if I wait until the government makes me clean it up, then I could just pay the fine and maybe get off of not completing and take some government money and Superfund money and pay it there rather than add it into my cost of business. I could do it there because now it's a long-term problem, and I'm not interested in a long-term problem. Capitalism many times is not interested in a long-term problem. They're into a short-term profit.
They absolutely are. This is a very consistent thing in big business. And I also have seen this recently with lawsuits against Bayer, who is the German pharmaceutical maker who now owns Monsanto.
That's right.
And Monsanto makes Roundup, the weed killer. And I couldn't believe when I heard this stat, but they lost one lawsuit for somebody that claims they got cancer from Roundup. They lost a lawsuit earlier this year and lost something like $78 million in that lawsuit. And then there's a new lawsuit they just lost, same type of thing, a husband and wife who got cancer, that got a jury award of $2 billion from Monsanto because of this weed killer. And the staggering thing, that stat that they reported, was there's 13,000 other pending lawsuits regarding Roundup. Talk about, this company must have done exactly what you just said, Bill.
That's right.
Always going after the short term. And what's amazing to me is that product is still on the shelves at Walmart and Home Depot right now.
Absolutely.
So, boy, talk about your motives being out of alignment with human care, and definitely being in alignment with your financial bottom line now.
And I it was like I was watching TV the other day, and there was a Roundup commercial to sell it.
Yeah.
I was going like, I see. You need to sell more of this stuff so you could pay the lawsuits.
And the judgment.
You're going to advertise and the judgment. So you're just going to push it down a line and do a marketing push to get a whole bunch of other people on it and worry about the. Anyways,
that's a scary thought. But all right, I'm sorry, I've grounded us a little too long here on criticism. But
no, I appreciate it because it allows us to get to the second one, which is defensiveness. Defensiveness is closed-lipped, denial, refusal to take responsibility. See, this entire thing with the Mueller report is saying is what Trump needed to, but he would never do. What he needed to do is, he needed to do what Ronald Reagan did during the Iran-Contra affair.
Really? I do not recall.
Oh, this is an easy one. You step into the mistake. You don't go into denial, close lip, close down, because that's what Nixon did. Reagan didn't do it, because if Reagan would have, picked the Trump path, he wouldn't be Saint Reagan right now. What he did, though, is he stepped into it. He goes, people are telling me that these people did this stuff. I had no idea that this stuff was going on. He took responsibility, but laid the blame on Oliver North and all the people there. Did he know about it? Was he that naive? I'm guessing yes, but
Reagan, probably.
he would, because there was people doing stuff around him, and all he had to do was be the actor talking piece. He did not have to do it. Now, the problem is Trump doesn't have any skill at being the actor and being a talking piece. He doesn't have any skill in doing that. Here's a Reagan story that I think you'd like. He was doing a speech on somebody had died, and he was doing a bereavement piece where he was, sad and stuff like that. And on what the camera saw above the podium was this sad person going through the bereavement piece. What the people behind him saw was his legs being very casual, almost like informally delivering the line. So as inauthentic below the podium, authentic above the podium. Because he's done that, because as an actor, he could do that. He could show grief. Now, it doesn't mean, I'm not saying he wasn't as authentically grounded or feeling the thing deeply, but he actually was applying his skills as a skilled narrator and wasn't refusing to take responsibility. Trump could have hung this on all the people that got indicted and stuff.
Yeah.
He goes, I guess they did some stuff that was outside the lines. I didn't really know so much about what they were doing as much. And yeah, I didn't really know about. Now, he tried to do a blame strategy on nobody told me about Flynn recently. He tried to do nobody told me about Flynn. But notice that is not refusal to take responsibility. That's blaming Flynn and blaming others for him. Taking responsibility might have sounded like Flynn had been traveling around with me, and he was one of my friends and was really supportive to me. I guess I really needed to listen to Obama and so-and-so and so-and-so. And I really didn't do that. And it looks like Flynn's got to pay for it now because they caught him doing it, but I didn't know he was doing those things.
Mm. So what would it sound like if, Trump were to try to take that approach with the so-called evidence or accusation of obstruction in the Mueller report, where he gave McGahn orders to fire the Attorney General or fire Rod Rosenstein, but they didn't carry out, now I've just lost the name again. Oh, McGahn didn't carry out the order. How could he take that kind of position there?
Well, I mean, there's ways for him to get out of it. And do I really want to show them the ways to get out of it?
Well, maybe not. I don't know.
But yes, I do. Of course,
I don't think they would.
As a learning piece, they'll never pick this up, but they could, anybody
I don't think he's going to listen to anybody else and give him advice anyway on how to do.
But there's a way to get the person to take accountability and responsibility from the Democratic place. It might sound like this with closed-lipped. Gosh, it really sounds like they're working on protection there instead of transparency. Now all of a sudden they got to pick.
Huh.
Are they picking? Oh, I guess they're continuing to go for the protection. Yeah, it doesn't seem like that they're going for transparency or truth-telling at this time. Gosh, I wonder what truth-telling would look like. I guess it would look like us seeing if nothing's there. I guess truth-telling, why don't we let the truth really help us out here? Let's see if we can get out of the divisiveness and let's get the truth about what's going on here. And what happens is you get past denial, you get past the refusal, you get past the responsibilities. And there's ways that he could have done it and his team could have done it, but they're not
All right.
skilled at this.
But if you want to escalate the conflict, you would close your lips, deny it, don't take responsibility.
Right. And then the wreckage is coming because it's going to continue to get worse. Because as soon as we're over to contempt, then there's emotional bribery. This is when I'm going to play people against each other. I am going to embody doom and gloom. There's a caravan coming. Now, all of a sudden, there's a contempt piece. You're right. The Democrats aren't protecting the border. It's like, no, there's no doom and gloom. They're three. I mean, who is it?
They're 1,000 miles away or whatever.
1,000 miles away. Shepard Smith. I don't know. Okay. Anyways, so that is truth telling. Emotional bribery is why they haven't, one of the many reasons why they haven't filed for impeachment as of this moment, because there's some emotional bribery going on. It's emotionally unsafe to get it to the Congress. The Congress will vote to impeach. He will be impeached from the Congress. It goes to the Senate, and there's not enough votes there. If there were enough votes there, the Republicans would quietly go to his office and say, Mr. President, we cannot protect you at this moment. You need to resign right now. And that's what Nixon did.
Right.
We cannot protect you anymore. We've been protecting you up to this point, but we cannot protect you up to this point. So what's happening is that the Republicans and Mitch McConnell really actually know right now is they got to stay a tight rank now, because the one congressman.
Oh, yes.
Amash went across.
Yeah.
Notice that there's the playing people against each other. There's the doom and gloom. We've got the labels and belittling that's showing up.
Right.
We got the denial and closed lip stuff. There's a lot of things going on there. So all the categories are being checked by. We're just, Tom, you and I are just, I'll just pull it. I'll be like the wizard. I'll be like Toto in the Wizard of Oz. I'll keep pulling the curtain back to show you the wizard behind pulling the levers.
Right.
Okay. Now there's a way to get the wizard out of the box. And to be honest, there's a way to do that. And we're going to talk about that next. But the main thing is this emotional bribery, playing people against each other. And it's so important for Pelosi to keep her people together. Don't allow them to play us against each other. The Democratic candidates have got to do the same thing. They've got to figure out their messaging on their own. They cannot use, let's not get in a circular firing squad is a perfect thing that Obama could have said. Great metaphor, great symbology of playing people against each other. Don't do it that way. There's another way to do that. Don't doom and gloom it. Don't go to emotional bribery. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So does that make sense up to this point as we go into withdraw?
It does.
All right. Let's make it worse. In order to make it worse, we've got to bring the protective strategy called withdraw. Withdraw is not calling or showing up. A person that doesn't call you back on a phone call is in a place of withdrawal. Okay?
Okay.
Distraction. I'm going to distract and I'm going to redirect. I'm going to disappear and then reappear. That would be certain people in media that are currently doing that. Okay? Who are the people that are disappearing and reappearing? Well, Rudy Giuliani is one. He disappears and then reappears.
Yeah.
So that's a withdraw strategy. Kellyanne Conway disappears and then reappears with a talking point. And then disappears again and then reappears. Not completing on a promise. They will not bring a promise to completion. So if they're not bringing a person to completion, what winds up happening, Tom, is that nothing gets finished or move into closure. They keep the promise alive. They keep the promise alive. So this just happened. Nobody wants infrastructure more than I do. But I can't do infrastructure talk until. Why are they not doing an infrastructure deal? So that the Republicans at least have something to run on, because they don't have anything to run on right now. They can't run on their record. They can't run on progress. They can't run on compromise. So if he signs that deal, there's not there that is one less thing that they have to run on. If they complete something regarding immigration reform, they don't have any new ideas. They have nothing to run on. There's no new ideas. They can't even run on the old ideas. Fiscal responsibility, they can't run on that. So you can see how that's working, right?
Yes.
Makes some sense. Okay. So as we take a look at this last group, not calling, not showing up, that's not showing up for the trials or the subpoenas. I'm going to distract and redirect. Have we had the greatest distractor and redirector ever?
Oh, of course we have. It's called Iran.
That's the new distractor.
Yeah.
Iran hasn't done anything.
Right.
Limited things.
Well,
Limited.
Sure, but not to the level that
To send a carrier group into the thing with full things. What? You're going to wait for them to make a mistake?
Or to me, it's the threatening language of don't ever threaten the United States or you will seriously regret it type of thing, right? I mean, that's,
right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not too hard to actually see what the military unfoldment of and the military narrative of engagement. It started with, President Bush too, saying axis of evil and listed the group.
Right.
Okay. Number 1, Iraq. Number 2, Iran. Number 3, Korea. That is what the war narrative will continue to be over our lifetime, Tom.
Sure.
Because we've got to figure out a way to get all of this money that we spent on military to be used. Because if you use it, then you have to replace it.
Sure.
Because if you shoot around a rifle, you have to replace the bullet. If you shoot a missile, you've got to replace the missile. And then you've got people that can make stuff now, because you've got all the infrastructure to make all that stuff. Because we're built around those scary narratives. And all you got to do is hijack a person's amygdala a little bit. Oh, you won't believe what happened in Iran last week. What happened? Because aren't they a part of the axis of evil?
Mm.
See, Korea doesn't even North Korea doesn't even have any electricity, and their infrastructure is miserable. It's all they've never built a economy. They don't have an economy. There's nothing. They have poverty.
Right.
All their people are in poverty. They have no food. They have some missile testing. They have some threatening things that they're doing. Yeah, they are. It's not great, but that's what they're doing. So it's very unsettling, and people don't really get that language choice and the ability to understand how to diffuse the criticism, the defensiveness, the contempt, the withdrawal. All these things are in play And this is one of the things that we're going to really get to next time is what are the things that you say or do? Because what happens is it leaves people in a place that is basically two language structures fighting against each other. So I'll take 1 minute and show you how this works, and then we could get to closure. Watch how weird this gets.
Okay.
All right. I want to create an escalating conflict. So what I got to do is set two opposite voices inside the ears of a person that is listening to me. And once I do that, I can hijack their decision making. This is literally what happened that the Russians did as a part of their social media push. They would put one over here, one over here, one over here, one over here,
Wow.
one over here, one over here, one over here, one over here. And all I got to do is take advantage of our free speech. That's all they did, is take advantage of it through social media. Everybody has the freedom to speak. Speak what you want. Then we'll see who's voting. But what happens if you get the person in a state of confusion or torn or overwhelmed? They don't vote. They don't. If you put them here. So all you got to do is start the first language. All the language has to do is start with some kind of obligation, some kind of angel obligation showing up here. This is what people should do. But you know what? The other side is not doing it. And it's a shame that they're not doing it the way we're doing it. You know what? If they were really a patriot,
they'd have a sense of duty. Yeah.
But really, they're the blame for not doing it. Now, all you got to do is take race and do that with it. Take finances and do that with it. And you still are setting up the polarity. You know what? When we really look at it closer and the evaluation is, but you know what? On the other side, it's really, they should feel guilty for what they've been doing. I'm watching well-crafted newscasters getting drug into this. And I'm going like, oh my gosh, you're just helping to create the confusion and the polarity. Stop doing that. It's not helpful and it's not healthy to America.
Oh my gosh, all the major newscasters need education in this.
They don't know that they're just getting hijacked. Yeah. Because, you know, they think that they're promoting a fact. We're doing the truth. Everybody wants the truth, don't they? Not exactly. I'd rather have an expectation be at odds with criticism. I want the things fighting this person because then that person won't vote. And for those of you who are just listening here, I've got a picture of a confused individual with a devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other shoulder. And the devil and the angel are whispering in the ear of this poor confused person.
And it's an excellent slide. And honestly, if people listening are old enough, there is a scene in Animal House that does exactly this. Do you remember that one, Bill?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Where somebody is, as really wrestling with, should I do the right thing or should I get myself in a safe space and out of trouble or, all this stuff. Awesome. Yeah, this is a great slide. You got to go to the blog post and see it or go watch the video.
The next slide is, you know what? Here's a reward. Here's a reward if you do well, but you know what? Here's a punishment. See, the narrative doesn't have to get the person to actually speak the truth. We're just interested in confusing the crap out of the person and forcing them into a black or white judgment in order to create odds inside their consciousness. I just got to get them to be at odds with themselves, inside themselves. And then I got to get their families to be at odds with each other over the holidays. I've got to break up their social groups.
boy, did
gotta,
that happen. That worked
I,
effectively, didn't it?
I've got to deconstruct their family. I've got to get them so they're dysfunctional, torn, confused, overwhelmed, numb. Isn't that what we're feeling today, most people? Tom, can you?
Yes, no question.
Holy crap! It's like, geez. So if I want to start thinking and saying these things, I will definitely escalate internal and external conflict. So we'll pick this up here next time. We'll take a look at the deconstruction of criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and withdrawal, how to be compassionate to that next time. And we'll take that up for a spin, because truth in a compassionate way, compassion does not mean nice. It means scary honesty is what compassion means. It is seeing the person struggle and getting that struggle and asking them what it would be like if they didn't struggle. That's compassion. I'm not going to give up my value or point of view, but gosh, I wonder what it's going to look like for this, and then go from there.
Wonderful. I can't wait for that one, Bill. I'm sure our listeners can't either. But wow, there's a lot to unpack here. So definitely come back for the next episode and we will do that. Thanks so much, Bill. Boy, that was a great journey. I enjoyed it.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Tom. Thanks for hosting. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you for listening to this Purchasing Truth podcast. We trust that you have enjoyed this engaging and thought-provoking conversation. Our hope is that you've received value, found clarity, and broadened your truth perspective in this episode. If you did, leave us a review or visit our website, purchasingtruth.com. Join us again for another informative and content-rich discussion here at the Purchasing Truth podcast. Don't just accept whatever information comes your way. Join the discussion. Discover your own voice. Purchase your own truth.